All right. Good morning. Oh, guys, French just got you up for the promise. We're trying to build you up. I need some energy. It's early in the morning, especially for those of us from the West Coast. So let's try it again. Good morning. Good morning. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. This is going to be a high-powered, very fast action. Kristen talked about all the steps, but over the next 3 days, we've got a lot planned for you. I want to make sure you have the energy and the excitement and the passion to gain all the value that we've put together. So I am really excited. I'm excited about the next 3 days. I'm excited about the opportunity to get a chance to interact and speak with many of you and talk about all the good work you're doing in the world and the space of GRC. You know, I'm always excited when we come to Washington, D.C. for the GRC Summit, because this is one of the greatest cities in the world, especially from a politics standpoint. And as many of you know, we had a historic election last November, and in many respects, we are still adjusting to the new administration and processes, et cetera. But it's not just the US that's actually experiencing these changes. We're seeing significant changes just across the world, and not just from a political standpoint, but from just the way business is done, the way economies are changing, just the way it's impacting our everyday life. This world of disruption is one that we are all indeed living through. Now, the good news is many of these disruptions and changes are actually pretty positive. You know, from a technology standpoint, technology is really impacting a lot of our lives. We have everything from genetically engineered genes that are actually helping leukemia patients, right, survive and improve their overall life expectancy. We've also got things like technology that's bionic, that's helping people who have been paralyzed actually have feeling in their limbs. And we're seeing things like the DNA App Store, which is a place that you can go to determine whether or not you have a predisposition for different diseases, right, et cetera. So there's actually a lot of positive things that are happening from a disruption standpoint. But frankly, there's also some things that are not so good. We've taken things like cybercrime. You know, now that we are all connected, whether it's our cars, it's our homes, it's our devices, it's a power grid, everything's connected now to the internet, which puts us at greater risk as it relates to how we secure ourselves, our data, our information, and frankly, also our personal safety. And to that extent, we also have things like terrorism, which is affecting us across the world. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge what just happened in London over the weekend. And our hearts, our prayers, and our thoughts indeed go out to our colleagues in London, the citizens of London and the UK, as they work their way through recovering from this just horrific, horrific event. But it's not just terrorism. We're seeing other kinds of issues. Climate change is causing a lot of, whether it's tsunamis and earthquakes, you know, those kinds of things are going on. We're also seeing a lot of changes and impacts as it relates to just political unrest. We see things like the massive migrations and how it's impacting a number of countries. There is a lot going on here. And it's not just global economies that are being affected. Businesses are being impacted too. We're not immune. Even in our own businesses and marketplaces. It used to be that once you got to a certain size and scale, credibility, you know, capability, et cetera, you were in pretty good shape. But today, in just about every industry, a startup, a company with a great idea, determination, some passion, can totally disrupt you. You know, think about just the taxi cab world, right? Uber did not even leverage the typical capabilities of taxi companies. They didn't have a fleet of cars, they didn't have a fleet of drivers, and yet they've actually had a major impact just by putting together an overall algorithm, a mobile app, and a vision. And look what they've done around the world to disrupt overall transportation. So one of two things is happening when that goes on. Either traditional industries aren't seeing it, or they're seeing it and just not realizing the full impact of what it could have. But either way, disruption is coming, and it's coming to all industries. And we've got to make sure that we're paying attention. You know, months ago, The Economist magazine published an article where they talked about the fact that startups are indeed redesigning the building blocks of capitalism. They are changing basic business models. And they are actually having a situation where they are just changing the rules that used to exist. It was very interesting because a couple months after that article came out, another article came out that published some words from Sam Smith, who's the CEO of the fintech corporation. It's called FinCap. They're a stockbroker in London. And basically he said, listen, banks are at major risk, and we're talking about big banks, of being fully disrupted by fintech companies, because they're also trying to change things. And I'm sure we'll hear about some of that from Gordon when we talk about what's going on in that overall space. So it's not enough just to be good at what you do. You've got to make sure you understand what risks are out there in the overall environment, because that's what disruption is really about. Because we're in this world called the digital age. And in the digital age, it doesn't take a lot to disrupt the overall business. As a matter of fact, there was an MIT study done where they surveyed a bunch of board directors, and board directors said that they felt that businesses are actually at risk of losing 32% of their revenue, 32% of their revenue over 5 years if they don't actually take proactive actions to fight the disruption that's coming to all kinds of industries. That's huge. That's huge. Now you add to all of this, the digital age, startups, all the insurgents, the regulatory environment. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, if you just look at the US, right? Under the Obama administration, they actually put in place 600 major rules, 600. And now with our new administration, President Trump is trying to roll that back. He's going after the Affordable Care Act, he's trying to reduce Dodd-Frank, and it's just the beginning. It's only been a few months. So in the world of business, there's a lot of uncertainty. And uncertainty, risk. So my question is, and what I'm going to talk about here this morning is, so what does it take in this world of disruption and all this change? What does it take to actually be a high performer when it comes to GRC? So I'm going to talk about 4 things. First, one of the key things is we need to start looking ahead and prepare. David Burnett wrote in a Financial Times post, he said, you know, he talked about the Uber example that I gave, right? Uber has changed that whole landscape and people didn't see it coming. Then you have to balance this whole issue of seeing what's coming with what capabilities you have. Because often we just don't see these risks and don't realize the impact that they can actually have on our business. But in today's disruptive world, these risks and threats are very real. And the key is data. We need information. We need risk intelligence information at the time that we need it to be able to make the appropriate decisions to actually counteract all these risks that are coming our way. The problem is, there's often too much data. Think about it. In your own companies, you've got lots of data. The problem is it's all scattered and it's all in different silos in different places. So sometimes you could say we actually have too much data. It's almost like an information glut. The key is not just the amount of data, it's the ability to actually understand this data and turn it into information. But the good news is we actually now have risk intelligence systems that can help us leverage technology to aggregate, sift through, report, analyze this overall data to give us the information, the visibility, and the knowledge that we need. And as GRC professionals, this is key. Now the good news is, over the next 3 days, and actually we had our first one yesterday, we have several sessions talking about just this, analytics, how to leverage and mine the information that many of you and your teams and organizations have been collecting to actually help you make those risk intelligence-based decisions. You know, just the other day, I was doing some reading about deep learning, really fascinating stuff. But we're actually getting to the point with things like deep learning where we'll be able to identify and capture the point of entry of malware as easily as I could see this bottle of water. The systems will be able to actually identify, isolate, right, and manage those kinds of risks. Technology, whether it's artificial intelligence, deep learning, all these different algorithms are absolutely going to help us. Because we need to use all of these tools to help us look in the forward mirror, not in the rearview mirror. Many of our resources today are spending a lot of their time looking at, well, what happened? Why did it happen? How do we keep it from happening again? Where we need to spend our time is actually looking in the forward mirror. What could happen? What would it mean to us? What would we do if that happened? That's how we become high performers. That's how we help our companies indeed drive high performance. So the second thing we need to do is to strengthen our overall agility and maturity. Many of you are familiar with M7. French talked about it earlier. M7 is indeed the new technology to help modern businesses get in the forefront and be agile and be mature. And you'll hear a lot about that over the next few days. But bottom line, in today's world, what sets a high-performing organization apart in terms of from others is how fast they're able to react. It's not just the financial strategies. It's not just the business model. It's not just the knowledge and experience, but it's how quickly can you react to change? How quickly can you react to opportunities? Because risk, as I like to say, it's not a four-letter word. We don't want to stop all risk. The only way you make money and create opportunity is to actually take advantage of risk and leverage it. And the only way you can do that is if you're looking in the forward mirror, as I talked about earlier. The opportunities are significant, but the risks are as well. Because it's not just cybersecurity. It's not just social media. It's not just over things that are happening around in the economies around the world. It's not just your supply chains. It's not just risks are coming from all directions, and you guys know that better than anyone. So I want to introduce a new term, a new acronym. We talk about risk management, talk about GRC. I want you to think about risk agility. And what I mean by risk agility is, do your risk frameworks that you've put in place, are they flexible enough to help you absorb information and recover quickly when changes happen? Because the only way you're going to be able to manage risk events proactively is if you have systems in place to help you do that. There was a 2016 Risk and Review report and study that was done by PwC that talked about risk agile companies. And it said that a company that is risk agile actually has higher profits and higher revenue growth than companies in general because they are able to react faster. And when you talk about high performance, it's all about being able to react faster. So the question is, great, Shellye, well, how do you actually create that? How do you build that into your overall program? Well, you hear a lot about that over the next few days, but it really starts with being able to look ahead and anticipate these risks. And then be able to have the framework, the data models, the systems, et cetera, to be able to actually leverage. And it's making sure that you can indeed break down the silos across your organization. So much of it is communications. It's not helpful if just one group knows about an issue. Your audit group, compliance group, the risk group are all dealing with the same things. So that they can communicate and draw out all the meaningful data and information to make the right decisions and get the right information to the right people at the right time. Speed, agility, that gets us the overall maturity. Because we want to make sure that we give our CEOs, our board members, the right information at the right time. Because when we do that, then we can thrive. All right, I want to talk about a couple examples. So CareSource. CareSource is probably one of the largest, actually the second largest, Medicaid plan in the US. CareSource, using their own terms, we're indeed using kind of a paperclip Band-Aid approach to GRC. Most of what they spreadsheets, via paper, et cetera, very manual. I'm sure many of us in the audience recognize and have been through this overall process. Business was changing too fast. They couldn't deal with everything that was coming in, so they actually leveraged the MetricStream system to bring automation to how they do all of it. Leverage the GRC platform to have a data model to indeed automate what they're doing from risk and audit, from overall business intelligence, being able to drive regulatory information, et cetera, pulling it all together. And indeed what that's done is they've been able to automate their assessments, they've been able to automate their reporting, so they're able to address the business needs faster, make the right strategic decisions when they need to make them. Riyadh Bank is another great example. Riyadh Bank, largest bank in Saudi Arabia, actually in the Middle East. They were dealing with lots of issues around cybersecurity regulations, cybersecurity risks, elements, et cetera. So they implemented they implemented MetricStream's Freudian slip. They implemented MetricStream's GRC platform and systems, the IT GRC solution, to help them indeed manage all this, because it's just too much data. So now they're able to pull in information from various systems and sources to be able to manage, mitigate, and proactively address the risks that exist. And they can provide up to their senior executives IT risk intelligence from many different vantage points, so they can make the right decisions and put the right resources on top of the right areas of the company for better compliance and better overall governance. Okay, third item. I've talked about the need to look in the forward mirror, the need to be able to plan. I've talked about what we need to do with regards to how we strengthen our risk agility. The third thing we need to do is to think like a fast-moving startup. Couldn't come up with a better analogy, so I'm using this one. Because what is a startup? A startup is all about speed, about bringing and looking at how to take advantage of opportunities that exist in the market and being able to react quickly to those things. And when you think about GRC, it's exactly the same thing. It's the ability to look at what's going on, to be able to react and to bring to your companies what it is that you need. Because think about it. What you do today, necessarily what's going to take you where you need to go tomorrow. Google started out as a search firm. Who would have anticipated 5-6 years ago that they'd actually be developing autonomous vehicles? Facebook, social media, right? They're putting a lot of money right now in virtual reality devices. The key about a startup is you're willing to go where the market is going. You're willing to invest and be proactive, right, about overall opportunities. And we have to do that in our own companies. We can't be afraid. There was an interesting Harvard Review article that basically said it's not good enough for companies just to be great at one thing. They've got to become great at learning to do new things. That's what this whole startup mentality is about. And we need to bring that to GRC. Because every year, there are new technologies we can take advantage of, new approaches, new processes, and we need to be able to jump on that proactively. Because startups are risk takers. And at the end of the day, in GRC, we're trying to help our companies become better risk takers. So it's the same approach. Now, the good news is, and the example I have for all of you in terms of the effect and benefit of having the startup mentality is MetricStream. One of the things that Gunjan Sinha, my partner and our chairman, say all the time is at MetricStream, we want to be the largest startup in history. And what do we mean by that? We mean we want to keep that startup mentality, because we're a large company now. We have customers and operations across the geography. French told you we're the largest independent startup, largest independent GRC firm out there in the marketplace, but we still feel very much like a startup, because we want to keep all of that excitement, the energy, the proactiveness in terms of what we do. We want to make sure that we keep that risk-taking mentality throughout the organization, and that we are being very focused on changes in the market, changes in our customer needs, changes in the overall economic environment, so that we can help all of you be successful in what you do. When we first started out, we were focused primarily on compliance, and we took a big risk to say we think it's a broader need around risk, governance, et cetera. And so we took the risk and invested much more deeply. Then we took another risk that said, you know what, it's more than just software technology, but it's content that's required. And it's actually cloud-based delivery that's required. And it's actually partners that we need. And it's best practices, and we invested in the breadth. And the good news is all that's paid off. Just look at the numbers. When you look at MetricStream, we continue to demonstrate the fact that we're bringing value to our customers. Year over year, our customers are increasing their overall spend with us. The cloud, 85% of our mid-tier customers around the world are indeed signing up and moving on to the MetricStream cloud. Partners, we want to reach a broader set of customers throughout the world, and our partners are helping us do that, and 25% of our business is now coming through partners. We are consistently a leader in GRC, as French talked about earlier, and first company to announce and launch the 4th generation of technology for GRC in our M7. But frankly, of all these things on this list, what we're most proud of are our customers. Sitting in this room and then sitting around the world, we have customers on every single continent, over 27 countries. And it's all of you that give us the excitement, the passion to do what we do every day. So I thank you for that. Thinking like a startup. The 4th area I'm going to talk about is using technology as an ally. Things are happening too fast in the world. There is too much data. There is too much activity. We cannot do this manually the way we used to do it. Spreadsheets, email, paperwork, it's not good enough anymore. Now, we've got to make sure we're leveraging technology to go after all the volatility that's happening in the marketplace, to be able to get to the speed. Because we have to take risks as business, but if we don't have the knowledge and information we need, that risk intelligence, then we won't. As a matter of fact, there was a point in the Wall Street Journal that was made recently that said, in actuality, we have not seen businesses take enough risk since the financial crisis. The level of risk-taking has actually declined. And what that's done is it's actually hampered productivity, it's hampered business growth, and it's hampered the returns and wages that employees have. So we need to take more risk. We need to be able to provide that risk intelligence. And it's only through technology that we will have that information to be able to enable our businesses to actually do all of that. Look at Formula One racing. I love to use this analogy when it comes to data technology. It's not the car and the driver. Has anybody actually been to a race? Seen it on TV, right? The speeds are amazing. I actually had a chance once to do one of these drive-bys where you sit next to the driver and you go around the track. I was bruised. My whole side of my body was bruised because of the centrifugal force that pushes you into the doors. Anyway, they don't win because of the driver in the car. Why do they win? Because they have hundreds of sensors, all over the driver, the vehicle, that's feeding information into computers. It's looking at stress level and air tire and speed and wind shear. And based upon all that, it's reacting in real time to help the driver do exactly what they do to optimize. Business is the same way. Stuff is happening all the time. Different data points from the economy, from customers, from markets, et cetera. So we've got to leverage technology to do that. And the good news is we've had a lot of companies that have seen success in leveraging technology to help them, whether it's Johnson & Johnson, and I see Belle out there in the back. Hi, Belle, from J&J. But a while ago, J&J, right, was really focused on how to upgrade their quality insurance program across the enterprise. You know, they've got over 300 different companies underneath their business. It's a hard thing to manage. They leverage technology to do that, to help them get comprehensive information, share that data, do the reporting, aggregate kind of all their risks, et cetera, so they can do a better job of being proactive and getting information in the hands of their senior executives. All this was achieved with technology. You have companies like the CBS Corporation. CBS, they began automating and integrating all their vendor third-party risks. Because think about it, most of our companies are actually working with more third parties, vendors, freelancers, et cetera, than ever as we try to expand our overall reach in the marketplace. But that's creating a whole lot of risk. So they indeed automated with MetricStream to indeed enable them to conduct all these assessments automatically, be able to get the alerts when they needed to, understand when they have issues, correlate, right, that information, et cetera. And bottom line, it enables them to ensure that they are putting the right resources on the right issues that need attention. The Olympics. The Olympics has a saying, faster, higher, stronger, that I think applies not just to the Olympics, but also to business. You've heard me say all this morning, faster. We've got to operate faster because the market is moving faster. We've got to make sure that we're driving a higher level of overall performance and achievement, and we've got to make sure that our risk processes are stronger than ever to be able to address all these needs. I talked about 4 things today on how do we help our companies and help ourselves become high performers in GRC. We need to look ahead to make sure we're looking in the forward mirror, not the rearview mirror, to understand the risks and opportunities. We have to strengthen our agility as well as our maturity for GRC. We've got to think and act like a startup and make sure that we're taking the right risk and moving quickly And we can only do that by leveraging technology as an ally. Those four things will help us indeed be the high-performing companies that we need to be. Now, this can't be done overnight. It's step by step. But all of you here have the opportunity to share your thoughts, your ideas, what's working, what's not. And I encourage you to do that, because a good chunk of the value is not just what we're providing over the next 3 days, but it's the time and opportunity to interact with each other, to share, to learn, to gain. Because at the end of the day, companies are looking for GRC evangelists. They're looking for you to indeed bring your knowledge, your passion, your capability to help them better manage GRC so they can better manage their business, so that overall we can indeed help our companies improve their overall business performances. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's not about stopping things. It's not about just controlling things. It's about how do we bring all of this GRC intelligence together to enable our companies to perform at the highest level possible, to compete in the marketplace, and to thrive. So, I ask all of you, as the call to action over the next 3 days, make sure that you gain as much knowledge, information, examples, contacts that you can leverage after the conference to help you do just that. Because each of you can indeed be the GRC evangelist within your operation and truly drive business performance within your companies. So I want to thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us. And I want to take this opportunity to actually pass the baton to my next speaker. So thank you, and let me introduce to you Gordon. Gordon, don't come up yet. Thank you. So Gordon Smith is a friend and actually a board colleague. He is the CEO of the Consumer and Community Banking at Chase. And many of you probably have a Chase card in your wallet. I know I do. Business itself is probably larger than you think. It has roughly 130,000 employees, serving over 60 million households and 4 million small businesses. The business is a leading provider of banking, credit cards, auto finance, payments, etc. He reports to Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, and is on the firm's operating committee. Chase itself has over 5,200 branches, the number 2 branch network in the world, and 18,000 ATMs, number 1, across 23 states. Chase.com is also the most visited bank portal in America, with 44 million active online users, including 27 million users. Before joining Chase, Gordon spent more than 25 years at American Express, where he managed several businesses, including the US domestic consumer card business. And I would tell you that Gordon brings a unique view and a passion around how to stay in front and leverage the opportunities that disruption is creating. He is constantly raising that point when we're in the overall boardroom. So I'm really excited to invite Gordon up to talk about disruption in the world of retail banking. Thank you, Gordon.